See how well managed it is? Until they tell me I'm wrong, and then I'm right.
Things get ugly. I just have to put up a sign. Are you ready?
I think we have everything.
I think we did.
Love that. Good evening, everyone. I'm Providence Councilwoman Joanne Ryan. This is the Special Commission for the Study of Providence Waste Management Services regular meeting, Wednesday, July 31, 2024. It is just 5:30 right now. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read the roll?
Chairwoman Joanne Ryan,
Present.
Vice Chairman Pedro Espinosa,
Present.
Courtney Wilkins, present. Shamari Husband,
Present.
Patricia Coin-Fee,
Present.
Sheila Doherty, present. And Samantha Burnett,
Present.
and we have 7 present, 0 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Just like to recognize, we have with us, in addition to this astute crowd, Miguel Jones from the Council Policy Office is here. I see Al Giuliano and I see Maureen McManus, DPW team members. Who do we have staffing from the law department?
Rosa Aries Perry.
Rosa Aries. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Covering for Steve Nelson, his government at championship, so.
Wow, those are the important things.
Yeah.
So in addition to trash, okay, okay, let's read item 1, please, into the record.
Item number 1, board discussion and overview of current trash hauling services, staffing, and current lease hauling contract. And the following have been invited: Patricia Coin-Fee, Department of Public Works, and DPW team also.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. No worries at all. All right, so before we have Patricia take the oath of office, be sworn in, as well as any of your team members, if you'd like to invite them up to the table. I'd like to just enter some exhibits. So may I have a motion? We have a PowerPoint presentation, a multi-page, it's not page dated, multi-page document entitled Waste Management, the City of Providence, an overview presented by Patricia A. Coin-Fee, Esquire, Director of the Providence Department of Public Works. I'd like to call that Exhibit A. Exhibit 3. Exhibit 3, sorry. No.
Motion made.
Motion made by Councilman Espinosa, seconded by Commissioner Dormady. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries. We have Exhibit 3. I would like to enter a request for proposal. Item description, solid waste and recycling collection. This is a multi-page, really multi-page document. I'd like to entertain a motion to call this Exhibit 4, made by Councilman Espinosa, seconded by Commissioner Dormady. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We have Exhibit 4. I would like to entertain a motion to enter another multi-page document entitled Agreement for Residential Solid Waste Collection and Recyclables Collection.
So moved.
I would like to entertain a motion to call this Exhibit 5, made by
So moved.
Councilman Espinal, seconded by Commissioner Dormady. All in favor, aye. Ayes have it, motion carries. And then, while we're on exhibits, I'm just going to enter a package. It is a memo to Patricia Coin-Fee from Maureen McManus, dated 3/28/24, City of Providence Public Works. It is 4-page memo and accompanying exhibits or attachments to that document. Let's call this Exhibit 6. Councilman Espinal makes that motion, it's seconded by Commissioner Dominic, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We have exhibit 6. Okay, so we have all of our exhibits. Now I would like to ask, I would like to state for the record that, as we all know, our esteemed colleague, Patricia Coyne-Fig is a member of this commission. Tonight, she will be testifying in her capacity as a director of DPW with her team, if she so chooses to include them in the presentation. And as such, since she is the principal administrator of the contract, the trash hauling contract, she may or may not be able to answer certain questions. And if that is the case, she will inform you of such. And I ask that you respect that in her discretion, as she feels it's appropriate in her role as administrator of the contract. Okay. That being said, can we swear in Patricia and any team members that she would like to have join?
I think just me for now.
Just you, Brenda. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Please state your name and title for the record.
it's Patricia Coyne-Fig. I'm the director of the Providence Department of Public Works.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, do we have?
Done.
No one's got the thing?
No,
So it's Claire's. It's so
Claire is
it's
not here,
So
so
Tina doesn't have the thing.
I don't have the thing.
So I'm gonna, okay,
Yep.
Can we have a substitute thing?
substitute thing.
I think we'll just snap. I mean,
Can you put it up to slideshow? Please. From beginning. There you go.
Okay, so we have the presentation. Thank the smart.
All right, if I stand.
You can do anything you want to.
Okay, I can see it better by saying. So I assume everyone can read. I've never been in the habit of making, I hate going to presentations where people throw words up on a screen and then read them to you. I'm like, I know how to read. So I'm not gonna read this to you. You know how to read, but it's basically, the purpose of this is so that we're all starting from the same level playing field in terms of what waste management looks like in Providence now, what DPW does, and what the contract provides for in a very basic way. Next. So step with me, if you will, into the Wayback Machine. Those of you old enough to remember Sherman Peabody. In the year 2000, remember way back in the year 2000, things like the Y2K bug was supposed to end the world. We're all gonna die, our computers are gonna break. Didn't
I was
happen.
waiting.
Yeah, it didn't happen. Still at work the next day. Hanging Chad entered the lexicon. I don't know if anybody remembers that whole debacle. That was the year 2000. Also in the year 2000, I was a lot younger and skinnier. And importantly for us, Providence signed the first contract with Waste Management. And at times prior to that had trash collection. Sometimes DPW did it, sometimes other vendors did it. But since the year 2000, it's been Waste Management. I will say that the exhibit number 4, which is the RFP, and exhibit number 5, these are from, the RFP was 2017, and then the contract is 2018. And there's really no full contract document after that. It's just been extensions and extensions and extensions with minor changes, usually just to dollar amounts. So that's like this is the document, even though it's from 2018, that has the real meat of what this contract.
So you're saying that
entails.
the contract has been amended,
It's been extended.
extended,
So
with just no material?
the dollar amounts. So as fuel has gone up, maybe some dollar amounts have gone up, some of the collection dollar amounts have gone up. I didn't include all the extensions. We can do that. I can do that another
I
time.
think it would be helpful.
Yeah,
if we just
absolutely.
cataloged them on the
Sure.
sheet,
Sure.
and bring them to the next meeting.
I can absolutely do that.
Thank you.
The main components of the contract are trash and recycle pickups, holiday trees, yard waste, and bulky items and mattresses. I'm gonna go over each one. Obviously, you all know that trash is Monday through Friday unless there's a holiday. At this time, 62,500 households in Providence are served by Waste Management. And in Providence, we include up to and including 6 units, which is more than some other communities include. Just by way of perspective, in 2000, the number of households served was 29,000. This is an explanation of the trucks, how many trucks are on the road on any given day. Waste Management has 7 trash trucks in Providence. They each make 2 trips to the landfill on each collection day. Same with the 7 recycle trucks. There's 3 rear loaders for dead ends and one-way streets that are harder to maneuver with the bigger trucks. They also do the bulky items. Seasonally, they'll have 3 yard waste trucks in Providence, and on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they have 1 white goods truck. White goods are appliances, things like refrigerators, dryers, and so. This is your schedule by ward. And this will become important later. If we could pause on this slide for a second. We're still putting together and asking some questions, need to ask some questions of Kristen, who presented last week from Rhode Island Resource Recovery, in terms of what we call the rejection rate of recycling that is brought from Providence to the landfill. We're trying to drill down on that data to be able to pinpoint what are the good days, and therefore the wards that are doing a better job than others in that regard. And so I don't have a slide for that, but it's that's data that we plan to bring to the committee.
Bless you. Bless you.
Okay, so these are just some stats from calendar year 23. Waste Management collected 3,400 tons of yard waste, 34 tons of holiday trees, about 126 tons of white goods, which is about 1,331 items, separate items. Bulky items. This is interesting. So Providence allows each household to put out 3 bulky items per household per week for collection by Waste Management at no cost to the household. Contrast that with Warwick, which allows residents 5 items 8 times a year. Woonsocket 1 a month. Cranston, I guess you can put out as much as you want, but you have to pay per item, $21 per item. Some other cities, for example, Pawtucket, you can ask their DPW to pick it up, or you can bring it yourself, and there may be a fee attached to, depending on what the item is. In calendar year 23, Waste Management picked up almost 39,000 bulky items in Providence. Now, you have to remember that these items, as well as mattresses, which I'm going to talk about in a second, contribute to the cap that Providence has. In other words, the limit of materials and tonnage that we can bring to the landfill. When we go over that cap, we pay a premium fee after we go over that cap. That gets into the millions of dollars. So this is a particularly interesting item that I'm hoping that we're going to discuss. Mattresses. So as most of you know, on Saturday, DPW runs out of Mattress Depot. But if you didn't want to go to the Mattress Depot, you can call Waste Management and schedule a pickup of your mattress. It costs $28 to the household. Plus, they require you to put it in a mattress bag. We sell those bags to the public for $6. You can buy them at Home Depot for anywhere from $6 to $10. And in calendar 23, Waste Management picked up almost 7,000 mattresses from households. And then I said, can we talk about the mattresses for a minute? Because this is one of the most.
How many mattresses? 17,000.
Waste Management picked up 7,000.
Okay.
Okay. So we do the depot at no cost. If the mattress is wet or dirty, it's going to go to the landfill. That's going to contribute to our cap. Clean and dry mattresses are placed in a trailer on our site. We keep them dry until we can bring them to be recycled. Some people just dump mattresses on their street or sidewalk or a highway, and those are picked up by our highway division. And if they're not suitable for recycling, those are brought to the landfill. 4,366 mattresses were picked up by the highway division all over the city of Providence in 23. At the DPW recycled close to 10,000 mattresses. It includes those 4,366 from highway and the ones brought on Saturday. So combined with what Waste Management picked up, that's where your 17,000 mattresses comes from in 1 year. DPW regularly participates in ward events, other city events, collecting mattresses, and also e-waste. E-waste is now a regular collection by DPW. We've also run collections for.
Okay, but
Eco Depot, things like motor oil, paint, other things of that nature. And we also do educational outreach and provide information packets to constituents at events and board meetings, PBD fests, that kind of thing. 311 complaints for missed pickup. So if you look at this graph, and then the next slide actually breaks it down a little better. Can you forward it to the next? Thank you. These are for missed pickup. So numbers are a little small, but the number in the middle is the number of complaints, and the percentage is what that number represents in terms of all other 311 complaints. So if there's 161 complaints in November 23, that represented 7.3% of all 311 complaints of all times for that month. What I noticed is there's a spike in January, and then there's a spike in April, May, and June. And what I suspect, and I'm kind of guessing, but I think it's an educated guess at this point, that the January spike is probably holiday trees, and the April, May, and June is probably yard waste. Other than that, the complaints are generally not an enormous percentage of all 311 complaints. But we know that whenever anybody gets a trash pickup missed, it's very, very frustrating to the constituent. So let's talk about fines. Yep. So this is a, my bad, badly photocopied section of the contract that talks about all the reasons why the city could pursue Waste Management financially for not holding up their end of the contract. And the one that's circled is the one that we've actually used. And to my knowledge, this is the first administration to actually pursue these remedies under the contract of Waste Management. So how do we ensure compliance? We have 6 environmental specialists, also called inspectors from DPW. They're out and about throughout the city on a daily basis to ensure compliance, not only by Waste Management, but also by residents. Make sure everyone's following the rules about everything from where you're supposed to put the trash barrels to not having a pile of mattresses in front of your house. I just talked about the fines, and then we do have regularly scheduled meetings. We literally had a meeting yesterday with the team from Waste Management. And frankly, I find those to be preferable to imposing fines to resolve issues. So we each bring our issues to the table on a regular basis and try in a cooperative spirit to resolve them. Here are some of the challenges as we move forward. Waste management is definitely challenged by staffing shortages, particularly since COVID-19. That's been the case, all along. I found an article from 2021 where this topic was discussed, and the then head of waste management said that COVID really threw them for a loop staffing wise, and so I still think they're bouncing back. The number of units served in Providence is very high, which is challenging. The start time in the contract says that they're not supposed to start picking up trash before 6 a.m. We all know that they start way before then. The reality is if they didn't, they'd never finish. And so just as an attorney, it bugs me that it says one thing and we do another. The number of bulky items allowed in Providence makes Providence a real outlier in this regard. And there's a lot of money attached to them that the city puts out. Years of changing sizes and colors of the parts has led to some confusion regarding recycling. That comes back to our issues on education. Enforcement on property owners is difficult due to lack of real consequences. I mentioned that last week about how if a property owner gets cited by environmental and doesn't pay, nothing happens. And that's something that we need to change. And then finally, recycling education coordination needs to be more robust. We have some ideas that we'll be discussing at some point about how to make it better through DPW to make that more effective. I do want to thank Maureen and Al and also Norellis Consuega from MCCS who helped me put all of this together. And finally, questions and discussion. Wonderful. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, questions for Trish,
I have a quick question.
Councilman Esposito, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question is, so we can find waste management. Have we been doing that? If so, how many times have we been fined, and do they pay?
Sure. So we've done it, I would say, a handful of times, for missed pickups, so that's the $1,000 option on that list. And yes, they pay. Sometimes it's basically processed as a credit. So it's not like they're actually, coming to our building with a check for $1,000, but 1,000 will get knocked off the bill.
We have a total.
Was that every time that they miss a street or just one
No,
restaurant?
not every time. We do try to work with them and we
Yeah.
do try to,
Understand.
Al is in communication with them nearly daily. And we do try to, say like what happened, sometimes a driver gets sick and they have to leave and there might be a missed pickup because of that and they come back the next day and get it. So we're not gonna find them, for
No,
it,
no, no.
So it's when it's something a little more, there's not really a good reason for it, if you will, and we talk to them and we make a decision like, this is getting out of hand. We need to impose a fine. And they understand. And so we've done that, I would say, a handful of times in the last year.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
I just wanted to ask how frequently you meet with them.
It's quarterly.
Do you have a
But we
number?
talk a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you do. Do you have a number, a dollar amount of fines? I'd just be interested in knowing what that total amount.
That we've imposed,
So it's
not with me, but I'll get you.
I think it's important to know that.
Yeah.
And it is notable that I do think this is the only administration that has enforced fines. Just to try to get them to cooperate. Anyway,
Madam Chair,
yes,
just on that note,
Chief,
for us, as we're thinking about the next RFP, $1,000 on this contract is like, we might as well be asking them for a penny. So when we think about both incentives and penalties, like Trish has done an excellent job of implementing what I describe as active contract management with your team on this contract. But we need to think about what the real penalties are that actually change performance, because this is a drag.
That was gonna be my second follow-up, because $1,000 really not a lot, so. Can we better increase performance by increasing fine?
Or providing more incentives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
so, anybody else have any questions?
I have a question.
Concerns? Yes, Commissioner? Husband?
When the city did it before, I know it was expensive for the city to do it in-house. Has there been any type of analysis you could share? Comparing the
We're actually
cost
going
of
to
doing
have
it?
a Presentation on that topic on tonight. So,
Yeah.
not by Trish, maybe assisted, Chief Hawkins is gonna make that presentation after Trish, concludes. Okay, Commissioner Donovan.
Thank you. I see you running us to flag the bulky items, and that is a big piece of things. I think the reason we are so generous in what we offer for bulky items is because otherwise we think somebody's gonna dump it somewhere. Harder to pick up, and the same crew is gonna have to do that work, and it's gonna be a messier thing to do. So I'm curious about your reflections about, like, how to get us to the right place for.
Yeah,
James.
Great question.
Yeah, really great question. I think, you're always gonna have people that are gonna do whatever they want, right? That's a given. That's always gonna be a percentage. I think there are people though that will follow the rules. And I think that, if the rules change and you communicate that well, and you socialize people to like, this is how it is now, and this is actually, gonna cost the city a lot less money, which will ultimately benefit everyone that lives there. I think if you do it right, you can get people on board with the idea that maybe I don't need to throw away three, but if I threw away that much, I'd have nothing left in my house. I mean, most communities have a much lower rate of bulky items, so.
Well, and I think
Chief Hawkins.
the thing that I would love this group to think about, because I do agree that for people that don't have, like, other communities have different kind of access to also get rid of. So in communities where people might not have access to get rid of things, like, we may need to have a high ceiling. But what I worry about is I believe people are bringing bulky waste and mattresses into Providence to dispose of it here. at their cousin's house, at the Mattress Depot in a Providence truck, and like, because it's unlimited. We're almost like inviting that to happen, and so like, is there a way to cap it so that it's generous, but not leave ourselves open to the kind of abuse that I think many of us believe inside?
When you look, to your point, when you look at the bulky items, the analysis, you know, the quick analysis that you did when Socket war with the Cranston, who are not as liberal as Providence is, their numbers are great on the chart for, you know, recycling and trash hauling and all. So clearly something's going on with Providence. It clearly appears that, you know, everyone is bringing their trash and dumping it. We have drunk dumping issues. We have regular locations that, you know, we all struggle with dumping. So clearly we've got to figure that one out. Anyway, I had a question. Did anybody else have any questions? I wanted to ask about, I can't believe that 17,000 mattresses, that number is sticking in my head. When we have 62,000 households, right? So that illuminates the fact that those can't all be Providence mattresses.
There's no way.
No.
Okay, so clearly there's an issue and we need to probably try to figure something out there.
Or that,
The other, I'm sorry, Commissioner Husband?
or that could be because a lot of people got evicted. And had a lot of people moving out.
That's a lot of mattresses.
We had mass
I don't
evictions.
think we have, well, I don't know how many evictions we have and how that correlates, but
People, houses went up in value and people sold.
there has not been a lot of sales. The sales have been down drastically just because no one is moving. Because everybody refinanced their mortgage and has 2.65%, the lowest mortgage rate since 1953. Even though that was before my time, that was the last time they were that low.
Can I just say one thing about that? Madam Chair?
Sure.
Commissioner, what I can do is pull data from prior years,
Yeah.
and I don't have it in front of me, but it's still gonna be really. So, but I'll do that. Take a look at it.
So, can I just finish my thought, I just want to get these out, so 311 in your presentation, Patricia, those are not all of the complaints.
Of course not, right,
Because you get them from some people who don't use 311,
yes, I do.
and Samantha can attest to all of that. But moreover, Waste Management, the current caller, also gets complaints.
They do.
Called in. So while this is a good kind of presentation, a snapshot, it's not holistic. So I don't know, I think generally these seem low and with spikes at certain times. But I do think that it is much higher than this.
Certainly, this is the data we have,
Okay.
you know, to
All right.
go over.
Okay, so, and then the only other thing that I wanted to ask was, 6 units. I was always under the assumption or the impression that if, we had a 6-unit apartment house, that by ordinance, they were compelled to, hire trash hauler privately, that we didn't pick up 6 units. And is that, am I wrong?
More than 6.
Is it 6 plus?
6,
6 is the cut?
6 and under. 6 and under, it's waste management.
Do we know
More
how
than
many 6-unit apartment houses we have? Okay, I'd like to know that. And I'd like to revisit that because we don't have space. Most of those barrels are on the sidewalks. I don't know, can someone provide that to the next, at the next meeting? All right, those are my questions. I'm sorry.
Thank you, thank you. Going back to bulky items, is this costing us extra to have the ability to put 3 items per apartment?
Yes,
So, so they're still charging us, even though they might not get 3 items per apartment each.
no, okay, I'm
Just to have the
I'm missing
ability.
it.
Goes against the cap.
Yeah, it costs us more as a city because it contributes to, us going over our cap, because it's so much material being added. No one's getting charged whether they put items out or not. It's just all about what gets brought to that landfill and how much it weighs and how that puts us over our cap.
Thank you. And just to finish up on the mattresses, do you think that we had, the fact that we have so many college kids living off campus, that contributes with the mattresses?
I think it's definitely a piece. We actually did some college move outs. We assisted with some college move outs. I mean, kids moving out of the dorms, they're not taking their mattresses and throwing their mattresses out. But apartments, they are, a lot of times the realtor that owns the building or leased to the kids will set up their own mattress collection themselves. But some of it is that what we help do. Whether there's a lot of dumping that occurs, upon move out of mattresses, it's not something, that's something I'll look at.
Excuse me, folks over there, we can't hear what you're saying.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
Commissioner Burnett.
One thing I was thinking that might be a great complement to what was in here for 311 is also to talk about the dumping reports that are happening in 311 too. To take a look and see, if there's a heat map, is it concentrated more in one area than the other? Or also, what are the peak times? Maybe that does complement the college move outs or something like that. It's
Do
just
we collect that? Is that collected in 311 dumping complaints?
Dumping, probably.
Yeah.
If I could say.
Do we
something
get
about that.
dumping?
Yeah, so just in terms of dumping, I had our highway superintendent provide me with a list of his top 10, if you will, dumping sites. And we looked at all of them and they're all, let me back it up. None of them are amenable to be like being fenced in. None of them is like a discrete piece of property that's getting dumped on, which I was really surprised with. They're like sections of streets or a hill next to a street or, nothing that could just be contained in that way. And the types of materials that are usually dumped are things like tires and construction debris, things that waste management wouldn't be picking up anyway. The issue with dumping is certainly enforcement is incredibly difficult. You almost have to be there while it's happening. And write down someone's license plate, and then it's really up to the police to enforce that. And so it's not really something DPW can do, but we do have 10 sites that we clean up on a regular, predictable basis. And I will say that I know that 3 of them are in one particular ward. Like, it's not like every ward has one.
Yeah.
Some wards have none. Some wards have 2 or 3. So it is definitely, I think, concentrated in certain areas.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Questions, thoughts, comments? Additional data requests? Anybody? Anyone? Going once?
I would just add
Councilman-
something in regards to the illegal dumping.
Mhm.
It's usually people that have a business that they buy a truck. They'll charge people to clean the yard, the basement or whatever, and they'll just, instead of going to the landfill, they'll dump it somewhere.
Exactly.
So if there was, the city had the ability through ordinance for the police to be able to stop these trucks when they're loaded. And if they're not heading to the landfill, they must be going somewhere to dump it. So that, I think that it's something we could probably do there. If I'm a police officer and I see a truck that is loaded with material and is not heading to the landfill, again, they must be going to dump it somewhere. And they should be able to stop that person and find out what they're doing with that trash.
Yeah, I think enforcement is the main way you're gonna stop that activity.
Right.
I agree.
Just think about that.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, so we've eliminated already that education is key to getting our arms around. We talked about enforcement. I think the other, component of this is diverting some of this trash. And do you have any success stories or strategies that you've utilized in DPW to divert? I know Al's diverted with me a couple of times, but,
That's the example I was gonna give.
Well, let's talk about
Sure.
it in the value of that in the city and how that works.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a defined plan, kind of sporadic, but it's important. So please.
Well, I
share.
mean, the example I was gonna give is I know that there was a recent event in your ward, and that we assisted with e-waste. Did we do eco waste?
We did
as
e-waste
well?
and
Shredding.
shredding. At
And
the
so
request of my constituency.
I think as part of what we want to do with coordinating our recycling efforts in a more deliberate way, I think there are opportunities to make it more formal and deliberate, you know, like on certain days of the week in certain wards, we could do deliberate kinds of events like that to.
So it does
divert.
help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, so education, enforcement and diversion. I was sticking with the two E's, now we're gonna dig.
Get it to.
All right, any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation, I appreciate it, good job.
Thanks.
And did you want to talk at all, or are you just providing these other exhibits?
So.
Or maybe you just explain them.
Sure. So you had actually asked, if I could provide the RFP. And as I say, that this is from 2017, and that's because it's, I believe, the last time we kind of did the formal RFP of this nature for waste management. And it resulted in the contract, which is Exhibit 5, which is it's from 2018. As I said, there was a lot of extensions afterwards, which I can get copies of those. But they're not very, they're like one page, you know, it's just like, okay, whatever that contract
Just a
said,
timeline.
we're gonna extend it. But this is the real meat of what the contract provides. There is an aspect to this that carries through from the very first contract, which I don't see. Actually, I think yeah, so this is the one, sorry, I didn't mean to think out
That's
loud.
okay.
This is the contract that has, you know, like the real meat in it, and I thought that as we're thinking about what kind of services we want going forward, it helps to know exactly what we're being provided with now.
Okay. All right, and then you've got the agreement here.
Yes.
All right. Okay, with that, I think, we have Chief Hawkins that is going to enlighten us, has some materials, Exhibit 6, all of the, documents in Exhibit 6. So let's swear, Chief Hawkins in now, and anyone else that needs to be sworn in.
You swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. State your name and title for the record.
Courtney Hawkins, Chief Hawkins.
And once again, Chief Hawkins, a member of this esteemed commission, is now presenting in her capacity as, CFO of the city of Providence and, responsible for oversighting DPW and a whole bunch of other things. And she's, testifying in that role right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the documents I gave you, there are 3. The first is just for your binders. It's a background summary. It's like this. Of the past 10 years of payments to waste management and groundwater resource recovery, so you have it. Noting that fiscal year 24 hasn't closed yet, so that bar would likely go up a little bit. But this is just a reference document. And then the other 2 documents are in response to council questions about what would it look like to potentially take trash removal internal to the city. So I've included 2 things for you. One is a memo that was drafted to Director Pointe by Maureen McManus about giving me the inputs that I should think about as I do this analysis. So this is a narrative document you can take and review at your leisure that explains some of the assumptions. I've also created a spreadsheet which summarizes much of what Mo outlined with some additions that I made. So I'm just going to walk you through this. The top box are the personnel costs, and it shows you the assumptions we made around hours and wages for drivers, mechanics, supervisors, a division director who would run this operation. And then I threw in a few FTEs for a call center, right? Because Waste Management currently takes phone calls for us for missed trash, et cetera. So we would need to increase our capacity around that activity. I added an estimated 15% of administrative costs. This does include fringe benefits, but the administrative costs are everything else around an employee. And that gives you about an estimated $5.3 million in salary. And so then the next box summarizes that other than personnel costs, and I divided that into two groups, one-time expenses and recurring expenses. I really want to emphasize the challenge around the one-time expenses. So taking this in-house would require the city to procure all of this equipment. You'll recall that the council recently approved a master lease that was probably the biggest master lease the city's done in a long time for $20 million to replace our failing snow plows, parks, maintenance trucks, other city vehicles, fire trucks, police cars. If we had to buy garbage trucks and other equipment, we're not buying things for those departments, and the city has limited borrowing capacity. So this would have to become part of our fleet program and our equipment borrowing. It's also a really hard time to buy these trucks, and last week it was highlighted in Coventry, those 2 weeks behind on their internal trash program, mostly because their equipment was failing and they didn't have the ability to procure it. A national company like Waste Management or another has the ability to do that differently. There's also reoccurring expenses, there would be more than this, but this gives you an estimate around gas, parts, supplies, replacement of vehicles over time. So we're looking at about an annual cost of $8 million, along with $10 million of upfront cost. What I didn't estimate, because it seems too ridiculous, is we would also need a place to run this program out of. We are building a new DPW complex, but it doesn't provide for running this program. And so we would have to identify another piece of land and build, a garage or whatever we need to be able to maintain this fleet of vehicles and run the program. So this is a high level consideration, but this document combined with Maureen's memo will give you some more background on that, which we can certainly discuss in future minutes.
Thank you, Chief. How does this compare to what we're paying right now for the waste management?
So right now, our annual cost of waste management is about $8 million.
Okay.
I think Trish highlighted in her presentation, but I just want to put a pin in this, that we do require waste management to use organized labor as part of their contract. So their rates are, their labor rates are consistent with what ours would be. It also does obviously influence how many companies are going to be able to bid or participate in our program, because it isn't something that every waste removal company is going to be willing to do, because it has implications for their broader operations.
In this, I'm not seeing, we don't have a lot for maintaining these trucks.
I don't. I did an estimate on parts based on the $500,000 is based on DPW's current budget. I doubled it, but I'm sure it's not enough.
I was just gonna say, I think
This is the total, as I like to call swag. It's informed by Maureen, so it's a better swag than what I would be able to do on my own, but it is a little bit of an illustrative exercise.
Okay. Thank you for doing that. I know that the council's been looking for this, so good to have it. We may have more questions. Anybody have any questions for the Chief?
I have a question.
Commissioner Husband.
So, for the contract, if we didn't require waste management to use, organized labor, would our labor cost be less or?
Better labor cost for us?
Yeah, cost and transfer it to us. So,
I mean, I don't know. I actually shouldn't speculate on that. Trish talked about the challenge around hiring right now. This is a workforce that requires CDLs. And CDLs are so in demand right now. The DPW team has actually done very interesting work in training CDLs internally because it's so hard to find people. So I actually don't know in this moment if if a union affiliated CDL and a non gets paid much differently because they're so in demand. That could be something we could look at and follow up, but it certainly historically has put them. There wasn't CDL training for so long during COVID that there aren't enough people with that, license, and it does, I think, federally require drug testing, which also limits your ability to pull in folks.
Okay. Since we're talking about human resources, and this may be a question for Trish or the chief, I'm not sure, but, our recycling is just horrific. I said it couldn't get any worse, which I don't think it can. But anyway, is there anything that we can do on, we talked about education, we talked about enforcement, and I know this group, as a body, will be looking at, other diversion strategies, but has there been any discussion at a staffing to maybe, help with education and recycling and just oversight of the process?
I think this commission should come up with that as a recommendation. In our report, I think, one thing I want to remember that I didn't share earlier is we had a group of Harvard Kennedy students study this issue for us. They produced a report that we'll make available to the commission. Their report was basically, we have to simplify our education, to try to get the cleanest recycling we can. Like one of the slogans was like, when in doubt, throw it out. If you're not sure if it can be recycled, put it in your trash can, please. So our perspective has been, we're gonna get new barrels this year. When we do the new barrels, that's our moment to really try to do a huge campaign about recycling and take what we learned from the Harvard students in how we construct that campaign. And then to your point, Sherwin, the next important question is, what's the appropriate both enforcement from a staffing perspective, but also to Trish's point around the action or the ability for us to follow up on fines and hold people accountable, which we tried to do and failed. So I think all of this would be great to include as part of our recommendations, because they are important components to an overall strategy.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Questions, concerns? Yes, Commissioner Gorman, please.
So in addition to the categories you've outlined, education, enforcement, diversion, and infrastructure, you just brought up, I think waste reduction goes along with diversion too. Like, how do we make it not end up in the recycling or trash in the first place and reduce waste? One of the things we'll talk about at our meeting next week is also the bottle bill. So there's state legislative strategies of proven effective recycling strategies, like the bottle bill, a deposit when you purchase something in a bottle or can, pay 5 or 10 cents, and you get 5 or 10 cents back and you bring it back. And so some of the beauty of that method is that you end up with a clean recycling stream, so it's not going to get contaminated at the materials recycling facility in Johnston with the other things. And people have an incentive to bring it to the place where it's actually going to get recycled in the end. So just a little bit of foreshadowing there, but wanting to round out the strategies that we're considering as a commission here that we think might make a big difference. Some places with a bottle bill end up with an 80% recycling rate for their bottles and cans. So the things that have a deposit end up with an 80% recycling rate, which is obviously very different than what we're currently talking about for those waste streams.
Great. So you jumped the gun, you let the cat out of the bag. That's okay, because you and I, we had a discussion about what likely would come next. And obviously, I led into it, we talked about education and enforcement. The next component is clearly diversion and other strategies. So next week, I'm going to be traveling, and I may not be here next week or the following week, but I'm thinking I'm pushing my trip. So I think I will be available next Wednesday. Does that work for everybody? And can we have the presentation led by our esteemed colleague, Commissioner Dormady, and pull in whoever else you think, community partners that are engaged in the different activities that you spoke about, and you also mentioned Bottle Hill that's up at the State House. If you can brief us on that, and if you need any help from the policy office and the council on anything in that regard, that would be great, to help us kind of flesh out that component that I think is a huge, impact on our whole trash topic. So I think it'll be a big help. All right, anybody else have any questions for, these two lovely ladies this evening? We did a great job.
I do.
You do? Councilman Esposito.
I'm not sure, Courtney, if you were able to do this, but. So I'm looking at from FY14 to FY24, so 10 years. It seems like waste management, the amount of pay went up by roughly about $2 million. This is at around 6 million. So if we were to do this in-house, we'll be hiring about over 60 people. When you compare that to the salary increases that these new employees will be entitled to, how does that compare to what the increases with waste management
Over time.
over time?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I can do that. Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
I think the shift is more like $1 million if we thought on it. I don't think it's a $2 million shift, but overtime. Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Okay, with that, I don't have any other questions. We talked about next week. Am I missing anything, Madam Clerk? I just feel like I need to do more. With that, may I have a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Councilman Espinal, seconded by Commissioner Dormady to a rate of money today. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. We are adjourned.